So, welcome to the Empowered series. Once again, I'm Sophia Ivengarba with Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative. You've been watching us, so you know what this is all about. These are a series of conversations with women experts who are creating change, and we want to learn more about their motivations and basically, how they do what they do. And I'm so honored to have Bekeme Masade-Olowola with us. She's probably going to kill me the way I will murder her name. But I think she'll still be patient with me regardless. So as usual, I'm going to start off with a nice introduction of our special guest. And you know what? Bekeme has such a long CV. So pardon me if I run out of breath at some point. But let me just start anyway. So Bekeme is a leading sustainability and communications entrepreneur. She's a social entrepreneur. She's the founder and the chief executive of CSR-in-Action, which is a group made up of a consulting firm, a think tank, and a training institute dedicated to corporate social responsibility, policy development, advocacy, empowerment, sustainable development, all in the region. She is the first West African board member of the Global Reporting Initiative, and she's also a member of pioneering sustainability institutions, including the Association of Sustainability Professionals of Nigeria and the Business Coalition for Sustainable Development of Nigeria, as well as Lagos Island Connect. And you hear a lot of sustainability in all the organizations that I speak about that she's involved in. She also sits on for-profit boards, including Zenera Consulting, which is a brand and reputation managing firm, as well as Buzz Digital. Masade-Olowola is a sought-after public commentator and prolific writer. She curates a newsletter on catalytic business approaches, impact. Under her leadership, CSR-in-Action has promoted sustainability measurement and reporting using the Global Reporting Initiative standards, specifically since 2011, and we're going to hear a bit more about that. She is also, which has catalyzed the adoption of sustainability strategies and transparency in the region. That's not all. CSR-in-Action produces the Pioneer Sustainability Investment Report in Nigeria, the Collective Social Report in Nigeria, now called the Corporate Sustainable Investor Report, which is endorsed by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and supported by the United Nations Global Compact in 2012, the first of its kind compendium, which includes a rating of business sustainability performance. Bekeme has engaged stakeholders throughout the economic value chain, government, business, civil society organizations, and communities. So she engages a lot. And she initiated the annual Sustainability in the Extractive Industries Conference in 2012. I'm happy to say I attended the last one the first time, the largest development-focused gathering for extractives, and nurtured into its 10th year with strong government, business, civil society, and other stakeholders' participation. It's a big deal when we come together for the CITAI conference. In 2018, she spearheaded the design and the development of the region's premier community engagement standards, which is a conflict mitigating and management tool for the extractive industries of developing economies. Bekeme was contracted to establish the Business Coalition for Sustainable Development in Nigeria in 2014, which is an initiative with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, driven and made up of a coalition of leading businesses. Some of my text just got lost there. Bekeme is, and this is what I'm always quite excited about, is the producer of the Good Citizen radio show, the #1 rated show on Inspiration FM 92.3 in Nigeria, and has had over 600,000 listeners a month, so almost hitting the millions there. She's obviously, with all of this, won many industry awards and recognitions, including the Sustainability Professional of the Year, Industry Recognition Award for contributions to growth of CSR and sustainability in Nigeria, Marketing Communication Personality Leadership Prize winner of 2017, and many more. She's contentedly married with 4 outstanding children. Such a mouthful, so much work, Bekeme. Wow, welcome to the session today. Let's get it going. it's so nice. We're wearing matching colors somehow,
I
you know.
know. We're in the spirit.
Yes, we are. Now, please tell us why this industry. For me, it doesn't seem like there are many women in this industry. I don't know why.
Mm,
What are the motivations? What made you want to come into this industry and create change?
Okay, thank you, Sophia, again. Hi, everyone. So why this industry? It's a lot of things. And going back to your statement around it not being populated by women, interestingly, we actually have tons of women in sustainability because of the nature of what it is, because sustainability speaks to nurturing. And, you know, typically women are known for that. And so we actually do have a few women in sustainability. Now, the problem is sustainability isn't a popular concept, notion, philosophy. You see what I mean? And that's why I got into it in the first place, because I like unusual things. The moment you tell me something is difficult, that's when I want to do it. And so I guess even just being interested, because when you talk about sustainability, sustainable development, you know, it speaks to, you know, nurturing things, the environment and whatever not, for the benefit of future generations. I mean, not depleting all of our resources and all of that. It then speaks to the notion of humanitarianism. And my mother is the foremost humanitarian that I know. So growing up, you had no choice but to do certain things. She was a chairperson for EWEI-TeS, I think as far back as 1989. One of her very good friends now has become the first international EWEI-TeS chairperson from out of Africa. That's to show you how committed she was. So we had no choice but to get involved. So EWEI-TeS is the female, or was the female counterpart of Rotary Club, right? But now I hear that you can join Rotary as a woman. In the past, it was EWEI-TeS for the women, Rotary for the men. And she took it so seriously. We had no choice but to volunteer at her events, my sister and I, with no pay. It's not like now where people say, I want to be a volunteer, and say, how much are you giving me and stuff like that. So it was no pay. We would literally attend, work from morning till night. We had no choice. So it was always there in my consciousness that I had this bigger responsibility beyond myself. So I was always going to get involved in social development. Now, I went to the UK and I worked in government institutions, two of them. I think it was Royal Borough of Kingston and Surrey County Council. And especially when I was working with Surrey, I had to deal a lot with performance measurement. And I realized that the UK at the time had at least 169 indicators that government councils used to measure themselves for what I now know to be sustainability. So, you know, around development, they had all these indicators that they used to measure themselves. And they always looked forward to these local council reports that were issued to see how well they were doing in terms of housing, in terms of looking after their key stakeholders and all of that. And so I started thinking, why don't we have any such thing in Nigeria? Why are we just seeming to exist, even in the private sector? So I think the third thing would be my master's program as well. I had my master's done at Queen Mary University of London. And two things struck me. One, I was interested in consulting. I had a course in consulting, management consulting. You know, that was one thing I was going to do. And then I also started looking into organizational therapy and basically how businesses work, because it was HR from the international point of view. It wasn't HR administration that I did. It was international human resource management. So there was a lot of cross-cultural management, managing diversity for race and ethnicity and all of that. So all of these things put together got me just looking into that area, saying to myself, what can be done? And then I realized that this thing that I was interested in and that I was working at was actually CSR, corporate social responsibility. And obviously, when I came back to Nigeria, I worked for a couple of years. My heart wasn't in it. I kept on thinking, this is what I need to do. And I said to my husband, I think that this is what I need to do. When I had to stop my last job, when I became pregnant for my first child. And it was supposed to be like a hobby at the time. I never thought this is my moment where I'll become an entrepreneur. It just happened. But I knew I wanted to do something like this. And he was like, I'm not sure businesses are ready to have this conversation. Because he was already pretty senior in the firm. But I said, you know what, that's all the more reason why I should try it out. And that's how I started. I started because, I had a passion for it. And I remember that when I was on The Apprentice Africa, the CEO at the time, Mr. Shobanjo, said to us when I asked, what should a person do? Like, what should motivate a person to start a business? And he says, make sure that no matter what you do, you start a business or work in an area that you are passionate about, so that when the going gets tough, you have the motivation, the strength, the determination to carry on. And so that's why I've managed to be in this space, which has been very trying, but very fulfilling at the same time.
That's fascinating. In fact, I was just going to ask a little bit about your time at the Apprentice, because I was looking it up on Wikipedia, and I mean, you've been involved in quite a number of ventures. Like it's obvious that this is a passion, right, for you?
It is.
Wow, that's amazing.
Very passionate about what I do. There are challenges, especially because sustainability is not. It's not popular anywhere in the world as yet.
Yeah.
But obviously in the Western world, especially in Europe, you have government institutions pushing that narrative. So it's a lot easier to get businesses and other key stakeholders to get involved, to start having that conversation. But in our climate, it's the other way around. Imagine an individual or an organization actually trying to convince all these many people that this is what needs to happen. But you see, in the past 10 to 11 years since we started CSR-in-Action, things have sped up a lot. I think because of external influence, a lot of big businesses have to deal with lenders from abroad. They have to deal with other partners who have certain expectations. The IFC would have certain expectations around social performance standards and all of that. So, and
even CSOs, and when we're being asked by donors, for example, what are your sustainability plans?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're all having that conversation regardless.
Yeah. Very, very, very inspiring, especially in a country where we continue to say, which unfortunately is true, that we don't really have that much of a maintenance culture. So this is evidently incredibly important. And one of the things we mentioned while speaking about you is it's the Global Reporting Initiative. What is this? And it's referred to as the world's leading sustainability impact measurement and reporting standards body. So tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, so linking it back to the conversation that we started around how CSR-in-Action was established, one of the first things that we did as an organization was introduce the Global Reporting Initiative training to Nigeria. At the time, it was the G4 training material that was available, and training certification. Because of that focus on performance, remember that my work with the local council was around performance in social development. And so I was drawn to that. In the course of my research, I saw that there was this organization that had already sort of made it easier for businesses to understand what sustainability is, because that's what I see the Global Reporting Initiative as doing. So it's providing a set of metrics that when you look at them, it tells you exactly what you should be doing to be a sustainable organization, to drive sustainability within your nation, to see how you contribute to achieving sustainability. And in this case, the more basic form, as far as I'm concerned, being the SDGs, because the SDGs are relatable. Anybody can pick up and say, okay, I'm focusing on SDG 4 or SDG 12 and stuff like that. But the GRI breaks it down into very granular measurement forms. So a smart organization takes this and, if it's like a gap analysis for them. So every time that they report because it's a reporting standard. But every time that they report towards or using the standards, they're one step closer to being that organization that is thinking holistically, is thinking of mitigating their negative impacts and increasing their positive impacts. Because for you, the process of even collating that information, the GRI provides guidance as to how that should be done. And that also gets you thinking. It involves the entire organization. It's not done, or it shouldn't be done by one person or just one team. It's a cross-cultural team that has to be involved. It has to involve the CEO. As you know, for decisions to be taken seriously within organizations, you have to have the most senior executives. So the CEO, the board, you know, it covers all of that. So that's the major thing. So having started that conversation with the GRI training, initially with a training partner from South Africa, now we're the only certified training partner in the country. After a number of years, we've trained hundreds of organizations, and you do see the difference in terms of how organizations then perform as a result of using the GRI standard. So basically what the GRI is it's an international independent standard organization that helps businesses, governments, and other organizations understand and communicate their impacts on issues such as climate change, human rights, and corruption, right? So it's basically supposed to help to increase accountability and transparency using the reporting guidelines. And that's why I was nominated at the time to join the GRI board and became the first from out of West Africa almost 3 years ago now. That was my first small girl, big God moment, actually. You know, when you see it on social media, like, oh God, these people. But it was, you know, when you had, you know how it is, how it can be in our climb. There's the issue of ageism to deal with. There's the issue of being a woman to deal with. So it was good to get some recognition from beyond the shores for all of that work. And it's a leading framework till date. Very, very well respected, used by over 74% of the top 500 companies in the world. So it's a big deal, and you know, I'm glad to actually be on the board to support its work, to ensure that, you know, we keep on developing the right kinds of standards, guidelines that organizations need to you know, to become better versions of themselves.
That's very impressive. And for me, it speaks to this whole issue of, particularly for our country, you know, bad governance, accountability, and all of that. And if you say that in the top 500, you know, if it's been used by top 75%, right, of the top 500.
Almost 75%.
Almost 75 in Nigeria so far. What kind of percentages have you seen in terms of usage, like state actors as opposed to non-state actors, just generally? What have you seen?
So state actors aren't actually measuring themselves yet. Let's just say the truth.
Yeah, that's absolutely necessary. Yeah.
One of the things that we thought to start as CSR-in-Action initially was actually creating the same sort of thing that I'd experienced in the UK for local government councils. And the resistance was so much so that, you know, it was something that we knew we had to leave. So there are a number of financial initiatives with, you know, organizations trying to sort of find out what they're doing and sort of measuring each other, but they're not actually themselves willingly releasing any information that they should not by themselves, measuring as they should. And in conversations that I've had with different organizations, state actors around this, is, you know, they're constantly saying, oh, we want to measure, we want to collect data from the field, not that they want to measure themselves. So they're saying, yeah, so for instance, we were signed up to the Paris Agreement on climate change. And it's a case of, you know, there's an SDGs office, there's a Ministry of Environment, there are a number of other different bodies that are acting individually And there's no way that they're sort of marrying what they're doing to ensure that we're working towards a particular goal. And I'm not seeing any concrete movements towards that to say, okay, these are the targets and these are how we've met them. But they're having conversations around getting private sector input into meeting those targets. Right? So, but even that is something of a chore. And I've had conversations with some of the agencies where I've said, we can actually develop something to get the private sector to even feed into that. But I don't know that they're actually, measuring themselves in that way. But one of the things that you would hear would be things like private sector organizing themselves to report on sustainability. So you have things, initiatives like the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles under the directive of CBN. And, they mandate banks and other financial institutions that are signed up to the principles to report on ESG, economic, social, and governance contributions. So there's that. And then there's the Nigerian Sustainable, so the Sustainability Disclosure Guidelines, that's it, by the NSE, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Sustainability Disclosure Guidelines, where they've mandated that the premium companies that are listed have to report using those guidelines. Now, those guidelines were developed on their behalf by the GRI, or they worked with the GRI to develop those standards for listed companies to use. So premium companies have to report, those who are listed, the standard companies don't have to report, but they're encouraged to use the guidelines to report as well. So it sort of matches with the GRI's expectations. In terms of numbers, I can't, so this is a question I was asked recently, and I thought, this is something that we should try to start collating information on. But there are 1,000,001 things to do.
Indeed.
There are 1,000,001 things to do, but we have been responsible for a good percent, over 80% of the reports reading, or at least for the first time. And I would say that since we started, there has, at least by the bigger companies, I would say that there has been a 40% minimum increase in terms of reporting. When we started with the GRI in 2011, at the time, the only company that was reporting using a standardized framework was Access Bank. But since then, we've had many other organizations reporting. Now, many of them may not use a standardized framework like GRI, because the GRI is very stringent. It's not easy to use because it has a high level of expectation from the reporter. It's not just a feel-good report. It actually asks the tough questions, is there collective bargaining? What's the proportion of men to women on the board and in management? What are your plans if you don't actually have good number of that? Your emissions, how do you measure them? Your water, it's very specific. It's very specific. So it's not easy. So you have, of listed companies, you probably have 80 to 90% of them releasing some sort of report, even though it may not be the GRI standard, but there's been a huge boost in the private sector, I've got to say.
Well, that's really good to hear, at least that within the private sector that is happening. And it would be very difficult for state actors to even kind of try and enforce that when even they themselves are not yet using them. So, it's interesting to see. I'm not surprised anyway, but if we have more of the private sector involved in this and such reports, would we be able to find them on their websites or a GRI website? Like, where would one be able to get that information?
Anybody who reports using the GRI standards has the opportunity as well to upload that report to the GRI's website.
Okay.
There's also the UNGC. So some people don't actually get to that point. They don't seem to realize that some things happen. So you would find that on their websites. organizations are happy to put sustainability reports on their websites. UNGC, the United Nations Global Compact as well, it's the first private sector focused organization of the UN, and they actually require for companies that are signed up to the UNGC to report a communication on progress. It's called the COP.
Okay.
So you would also find that on their website, and you have quite a number of companies. Again, they just have 10 principles, and you can just say, okay, corruption, this is what I'm working on. So it's easier to do. But what we say is when you report using the GRI standards, you typically cover all of these expectations. Your GRI report has more than enough information for your UNGC COP. It usually has more than enough information for your IFC reporting. It usually has more than enough information for your regulator. The only difference sometimes may be that the regulator needs for the measurement to be in a certain way, and the GRI measures it a little bit differently. But typically, when you report using the GRI, it's so robust that it covers everything. So yes, organizations, websites, the GRI, the UNGC's website, and we've started also putting up on our website, CSR-in-Action.org, for the companies that we've worked for.
Okay, that sounds good, and
certainly
and
then also corporate register. Right, the corporate register is actually another website that has tons of sustainability reports from all over. You want to check it.
That's very interesting and good resources. So be sure to, our viewers, please be sure to check those. So, I mean, very closely linking to that, let's talk a little bit about the kinds of concrete impact you've seen from your work, especially with CSR in Action. What are the things that you've seen and you've said, yes, this is why I went into this?
Okay, so the things would be, firstly would be the reporting. We've been, like I said, we've trained, we've written for, we've provided assurance for companies using the AA1000. So we see a lot, like we drove this. I'm happy to say, I'm confident to say that we drove the conversation around reporting. We had conversations with SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. We had conversations with the NSE. We've had conversations with the Ministry of Environment, and we do see tons more companies reporting. So the most popular standard, no surprise, in Nigeria is the GRI. I don't even know if people are using others. So most people report using the GRI, and then they'll say, okay, we also are, looking to what the SDGs expect for us to be doing as well. So you add that, and then this other standard, you add that. But typically the crux is a GRI report, and that's one. Our CTA conference, the conversations that we've had around the CTA conference have led to, government actions on certain other things. So, with these things, there are multiple other stakeholders sort of putting pressure, but then you see that you talk about a specific thing, say diversification in a certain way, community engagement in a certain way, and then you see that, this is happening, especially because we use our newsletter as well. So we don't just have conversations, webinars, conferences. We also have a newsletter which goes out to over 30,000 email recipients. And we know that we have some key government personnel in our newsletters as well. We have private sector players. I mean, because we constantly have to engage these guys. And, the human beings, they get to read it, they get to take action on, on recommendations. Because I think we're not even the nonprofit advocacy aspect is, that's why we call it a think tank. We don't actually picket fences. We try to collaborate. We try to say, this is what you need to do, not just pan. Sometimes people need hand holding, and that's what we try to provide. And following on, several iterations of the CTA conference, then we released our community engagement standards, which has been adopted by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And, yes, that's the first ever of its kind. So we keep on saying, if the Goldman Sachs survey points to the fact that over 73% of challenges, distractions and whatnot in the sector is caused by non-technical issues like community conflict and all of that, then, it makes sense that you want to address those things that cause those conflicts, that causes for people to constantly make the same mistakes. And I remember that many years ago when I went to a UNGC meeting, I met with Sir Macmillan Stewart, who at the time was the chairman of the UNGC Foundation. And he was the first chairperson, I think, managing director of Shell in Nigeria. And, he said to me that the challenges that they had was they having to deal directly with chiefs, kings within communities, and not having conversations with the people. So it was a lot more transactional. And these people could be unscrupulous and decide to keep whatever for themselves without engaging their people. You say, I want to give 50 scholarships, they give 50 of their children, And so we're saying these are actually steps that have been proven to work. So we did concrete research. We looked at different countries, Peru, Canada, Russia, right? And we said, following this, and then we engaged all 9 oil producing states because, they are more established than the mining sector. So we focused on that. And we came up with this fantastic holistic plan that you can use, that a company can use, and it's free, it's on our website. So that endorsement, so companies can use from when they get the lease up until when they have to decommission or hand over in some way, and exactly what you need to do. I was saying to companies, you don't actually need to change whatever you're doing. You don't have to rename it to be this. It's just you have to make sure, so it can be called, what we refer to as Sustainable Community Development Plan can be your GMOU or whatever you choose to call it. Just make sure that you have these in place, because if you do all of these, you will have less instances of conflict, if at all. The communities will realize that this is a serious company that has our well-being at heart. And they'll become your ambassadors. But that's the major challenge, is the mode of engagement. It's typically a case that many companies feel that they're doing the communities a favor, when actually these resources are, theirs to a large extent. Now, the communities too, we now have plenty of scrupulous people in those communities as well, who are taking advantage of leadership positions to perpetuate all sorts. So it's now, we're saying, communities, companies, government, everybody take your responsibility and make sure that you do your part in order that we have more peaceful, prosperous communities. So I think that's a very big deal. We've trained over 350 nonprofits as well through our CSO professionalism, effectiveness, and therapy workshop with Access Bank. We've had it over 500 by now. So they're literally specific things. You won the car awards. That's the new initiative that we started. It's in its 2nd year now, so you won at the time that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala won for leadership, the Aminu Kano Award for leadership. And so you see that the fact that she became DG of the WTA wasn't us just trying to give somebody fancy. I mean, she obviously is a leader. And so that's what we always, what we're known for is the integrity of what we do. So it's not a case that we want to give people that we know and like. We try to make our processes open and accountable. And I think that we've had a lot of success with giving people or helping people using our platform to get different organizations to get recognition, to network. We have that a lot as well. And basically to be better versions of themselves.
I'll jump in here and quickly say that, if that's the precedence for Dr. Well, I'm hoping I become the next.
I know, right? Amen to that.
Hoping.
That's the spirit.
So getting back to the serious talk, you mentioned so much about how you mentioned you really like how you landed where you talk about everyone understanding their part, what they need to do, not people just sitting down expecting government to come do this or the private companies to do this. Like you find out that, and I think this is where sometimes we activists miss out. We think that bringing change is all about going, screaming, shouting, and not deeply understanding that these things have to do with indices. They have to do with deeper things. They need systems in place, and that these systems, people need to be accountable to such systems and frameworks and strategies, right? So, I mean, speaking of that, because you've spoken quite a bit about the partners that you've been working with. So it seems you've worked very successfully with them, whether it's a private sector, government, and so on, multilateral agencies. So for those who want to try and learn and work better and establish stronger collaborations, do you have any tips for others that are trying to do that, trying to do the same?
Are these people working in non-profit organizations, perhaps?
I think I would focus on them first. This is our constituency, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes. And interestingly, that's a conversation that I had a week or two ago with a non-profit organization. They called me in to say, okay, you've worked successfully with businesses. How can we do that? So I thought it would be great that, I'm thinking this is great that you're asking me again. So you see, the thing with nonprofits is that we get into this space with a lot of passion. There's a lot of passion, less logic. We think, oh, this is what everybody wants. This is what I must do. And it must happen because I'm passionate about. Newsflash, not everybody, most people are not passionate about change like you are. They're not passionate about, sorting it out for other people. They're just trying to survive. They're trying to make money. So usually it's that much harder. So we also faced the same challenge because initial registration was as a non-profit, which we still have. But over time, we kind of realized that businesses, for instance, as an example, would rather pay more for you to work for them individually than for you than to pay less and be part of a group. So they wanted to be able to shine. So it led us to sort of rethinking how we work with different organizations. So first thing I would say, you have to make sure that your focus as a nonprofit aligns with the vision of the business or the sector that you have a passion for. You cannot afford to be selfish in the way that you go about. So you don't say, oh yes, so they should be interested because this is what I'm interested in and this is what they should do. You have to realize that they're in business to make money. And yes, they probably need to do those things that you think that they should do. But the reason why they're not doing it is probably because they don't see the value yet. And that's why you're there to point it out. So firstly, look into how you can, firstly, do they align? Does your vision align with theirs? And then secondly, how do you help them see? You have to help them see how you are aligned. So for instance, in terms of helping them see, right? You have to be strategic, almost wily, I would say. So tell them, for instance, you have this particular thing that you want to sell to them or you want them to partner on. You say, I want to provide you with, a training. Most people don't like free trainings. They don't value free trainings. But you can also make it seem like, wow, you shouldn't be missing out on this. So they want free stuff, but they don't really want free stuff. So you have to make it exclusive in some way. So offer them, for instance, a training to say, okay, I want to help you understand the intersection between business and human rights, right? Because there are certain protocols that are coming into place that would mean that you have to report on it. So if, for instance, if you see what's happening in the news, government is gearing towards blah, blah, blah. So help them see that, try to enter them by providing something for them that they don't necessarily have to pay for. Right? Or, that they don't have to sponsor and all that. So you use that to build trust, to build relationships, because I keep on saying that businesses are made up of human beings like you and I. So people that you work with have to sort of like you or at least respect you. they have to respect that you are a professional. Businesses like professionals. So as a non-profit organization, you have to come prepared. You have to come prepared. You have to seem professional. You have to look the part. Not every time the hippie look. Sometimes the look that they want. Do you understand? Yeah. Sometimes the look that
with
they
your
want.
jeans and sneakers.
Sorry? Yes.
Every single time.
Yes, yes. Sometimes. So when you're on the field, you look that way, but when you want to meet with them, look a certain way so that they'd even give you the time of day. Because one of the issues, or one of the reasons why we even started the CSO professionalism training was, as a young nonprofit, when we started, I saw that there was a lot of distrust for nonprofit organizations. It felt like a lot of nonprofits had been CRE for so long. I don't know, do you know what CRE means? So much so that once a bit of cash comes in, like, school fees time, it's time to pay all of these bills. Yeah, so so delivery will not be as it would, as they would like. So there was a lot of distrust, like, people have come again, and so I thought, for instance, we need to teach nonprofits how to manage their finances better, how to budget better. Don't go to the organization and say, I want to feed 500 girls and it'll cost 500,000. They'll give you 500,000. What about you who's been doing all the legwork? What's going to happen to you? So what tends to happen, they'll take from that 500K to sort themselves out. So it's not as it should be. So we need to, to do those, to be more professional. So think like a business, make projections, hire equipped yet passionate staff, because you're not going to be able to pay as much as the businesses, but you can actually do the best that you can. So you have to, when I spoke to pointing out the benefits for the businesses in clear terms, I was talking about, for instance, you can say that, what they would do would help them to boost sales, visibility, say employee productivity, or it can help to position them to strengthen the business's local reputation.
Yes.
Right. So those are basically strategies that you can use. And in terms of them noticing what you do, you have to reach out to the businesses. I said earlier when I was speaking on this that you don't have to compromise your values. It doesn't mean just because you have a friendly relationship with a business doesn't mean that you've forgotten the essence of what you are. We all have friends, relatives that are whose values are totally antithetical to ours, but we get along. Yes. So that's how I see it, right? So it's a case of you saying, this is how I think that, you can be more like me without being preachy. That doesn't mean, again, like I said, that you would then do certain things that you should not do because you want to be able to forge that relationship. Not all relationships will work. Yeah. Let it go if it doesn't. If you're being compelled to do something, say be a mouthpiece for an organization that it's not doing something that it should do, then obviously that's not something that you want to do, right? So I think the final thing would be the way that we communicate in terms of branding of the organization, and it speaks to professionalism. So, have a proper brand, your logo and the messaging type should be consistent. You have to have a good website. They want to visit your website and it makes sense. There are cheaper resources for getting these kinds of things done. I think that those are the investments that we need to make. Tailor broad messages that speak to the businesses. And, and I think that we also need to write reports on work that we've done, write reports on our website, put it on our LinkedIn, send it to them. And on occasion, if you've done your research, the first point I made was make sure that your visions are aligned. Yes. Send to them directly. It's not everybody who would pick up the messaging that you have in the public space. You can do your research, find contact persons and market to them as a business would, so that they can see you and see the value that you bring.
And obviously evidence, right, of what you're doing. Like,
Absolutely.
yes, we whatever, we engage 500 girls, but so what kind of real changes you make in their lives and so on. You know,
Right.
for those watching, this is a master class. You're getting free of charge. Okay, through EWEI. All right. So remember that.
So when you get paid, please send me some. I'll send you the bank details.
Please do. We'll make sure we project properly.
Yes, especially when you're DG.
So Bekeme, over the next 5 years, what's next? What's up?
I think one of the core things that we want to do is to expand our services across Africa. It's a conversation that we keep on hearing. People keep on saying to us, you should do this, you should do this. And I think that it's time. I think that we're mature enough, to do that, to provide cross-sectoral solutions. And then we want to also work on basing a lot of our services on technology. So we want to be one of the big businesses. So we have all these solutions that we typically provide to individual clients. We need for people to be able to access those services in a more seamless manner without us spending so much time on it. So the way that you would use Sage for your accounting, for instance. So we have quite a few that are in the works that we're trying to finalize. And of course, I think that one of the things, partnerships. It's important that we enter into partnerships. We're looking at major partnerships. I think that we've grown our brand name enough, but as a mom, oftentimes I just I'm satisfied with just doing certain things because I'm trying to be available at home and at the office. But I think that it's time for us to sort of kickstart on some of the major partnerships that we've been talking about. And of course, the final thing would be to mentor other people, find time to mentor other people and organizations who want to work in this space. When you talk about development, sustainability, it's not something that 20 companies can do. So you need a lot more people in the space to try to bring about the solutions that we want.
Absolutely. I mean, mentoring, it's music to my ears. It's something that it's so important, especially for women, and then even more in such a niche, sector. So, I mean, to access services, one should simply go to the website to see what's there. Like how, if I'm an organization, fortunately, I've come to know you, I understand what it is, but tell me if an organization, someone has watched this, what do they do? What should they reach out to the website? What's the next step?
So to reach out to us is pretty straightforward. Our website has quite a bit of information. It's segmented into CSR-in-Action Consulting, CSR-in-Action Advocacy, and there's training. So it basically shows you the training services that we provide, consulting services around, impact assessment, CSR strategy development, reporting, assurance services. We even provide environmental services. We have certification from the ministry and all of that. So it's all there on the website, www.csr-in-action.org. So CSR-in-action.org. That's all the information. There's all the information that you need, and of course, you can send a message to info@csr-in-action.org. CSR-in-action.org. Thank you, Sophia. Don't worry. When money comes through,
you remember us. I will hold you to this. Now I have proof. Even
I keep my words. My name is Toknadu.
Thank you so much, Bekeme. We will have the links to the website below this video on YouTube and anywhere else you'll be viewing it. So you'll have the CSR-in-Action website link, which you can go to learn more about what Bekeme and her wonderful team are doing. Obviously, we've been with Bekeme Masade-Olowola. I got it right. I got it this time. Olowola. Good. Any last words you want to share with us before we close?
I would say if you can dream it, you can pursue it. And also add that anyone who's watching should not be afraid to be different, because that often is your blue ocean strategy?
I'm going to frame that and put it behind.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. So, ladies, everyone, it's been the Empowered series with Bekeme, and watch out for our next session. See you soon. Thank you so much, Bekeme, for joining us. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
You too.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.